All right, it's Alabama. It's USC in week 1. The Blue Bloods are out. Does it get any more glamorous than that when you're talking royalty in college football all time? All right, we bring in Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. You can also catch him on 102.9. That's Tide 102.9 for his show, the way it is, 6 to 8 Central Time, Monday through Friday. Stephen, this is quite a matchup when we talk Bama USC. On the surface, here's my thought, that if you take the 10 or 15 best players on each team, then you have a pretty good NFL game. If you get past that, I've got to think at this point, unless I'm proven wrong on Saturday night, that USC is probably still a little too thin for 4 quarters with the Tide.
It's going to come down to the play in the trenches, Mark. Both teams on the line, Alabama's defensive line against USC's offensive line, and vice versa. I think whoever can control the trenches is going to win this football game. Aside from Cam Robinson, not many guys on this line have been really, really tested for real. I mean, Smith-Shuester played 15 games last year at left guard, right beside Ryan Kelly, but now he's making this move to center. So now Smith-Shuester is going to be in charge of calling everything. He's never played center before. So it's something new for him. On that right side, you have he's number 1 offensive tackle in the country coming in from Folsom, California, still young, still a freshman. Practice speed, much different from when they put on the lights and its actual game speed. And then you have Bradley Bozeman in the mix, a very interesting part. Bradley Bozeman, who's played in 24 career games, 15 of those games last year, as a reserve center and guard, 6'5", 319 pounds, can play numerous positions. And in the last 2 days concluding fall camp on last week, he was seen taking reps at first-team center while Alabama swapped Smith-Shuester over to right guard. So Saban's still kind of trying to see guys to put on the field where the offensive line is concerned. But aside from Cam Robinson, nobody in this group has been really, really, really tested. Cam Robinson, who's played in 29 career games.
And I know Bama's still trying to figure things out, as you allude to there. USC along the defensive front, that's probably the weakest position for the Trojans across the board. They lost their best defensive lineman to the NFL draft, and they're really thin up front, and they could get pushed around in this one. And I would think that that is the road to victory, key number 1.
The first thing for USC, Mark, it's going to have to get after the quarterback, and this is where the linebackers, guys like Cameron Smith and Sua Craverns, come into the picture. Sua Craverns, who led the team in tackles last year, they've got to find some way to create negative plays, affect the timing of Cooper Bateman or Blake Barnett, or let's face it, whomever Saban feels like throwing under center. USC's got to create that pressure. Clay Helton is going to come into this game making sure his guys are prepared to play and understanding the significance of this ball game. But the linebackers have got to step up and get those negative plays. And in the back end, guys like Adoree Jackson, Iman Marshall, and just this entire secondary as a whole has got to find a way to frustrate the receiving corps. You're not going to completely take out Calvin Ridley, but you got to at least frustrate him, reroute him. If you go back and watch the Michigan State game from the Cotton Bowl, Michigan State were not able to reroute Calvin Ridley. And when you allow somebody that's 6 feet, 188 pounds, that's running 4.3 speed, get up enough head of steam on you, it's going to be very hard to stop and reroute, get your hands on him, and affect the timing of where he's trying to go to. And it's the same with Ardarius Stewart, Garrett Dieter, Robert Foster, not yet to mention O.J. Howard. So for this USC secondary, it's got to frustrate the timing, reroute the receivers, and for the linebackers to get those negative plays.
Yeah, so the USC defensive backfield, and I don't know how many people that are watching this as Alabama fans or SEC fans that are locked into conference play really get it, but USC defensive backfield might be the best in the country. They are loaded. You mentioned 2 in Adoree Jackson and Iman Marshall. They're as talented as anybody you're going to find in college football, but as we all know from watching football constantly, that if you don't put pressure on the quarterback, and that was your first statement, It doesn't matter if you've got Deion Sanders covering downfield for 7, 8, 10 seconds. It's not going to work. That's going to be the big issue for USC, I think. The defensive front getting pressure on Barnett or Bateman, and then I think they're going to get pushed around in the fourth quarter in the run game. I just don't think they have enough up front to deal with Alabama. Kind of on the flip side, obviously, with a young but very talented quarterback in Max Brown starting for USC. He was the number 1 rated quarterback by most services when he came out of high school, but sat behind Cody Kessler. Wow, he gets thrown into the fire, and obviously when you got that young kid behind center, regardless of how talented he is and how long he's been on campus getting reps in practice, you throw the house at him.
There's got to be something that Clay Helton and, of course, T. Martin, who goes into his first year calling plays for Southern California. T. Martin, his 5th year on that staff. We all remember T. Martin as the backup quarterback to Peyton Manning with the Tennessee Volunteers. Of course, T. Martin would go on to win a national championship in that 1998 season. But apparently there's something that Clay Helton and Martin see, and Max Brown, the young man is 6'5", 220 pounds, redshirt junior. He does have a lot of talent, and it's good for him that you have guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Stephen Mitchell Jr., of course, in your backfield with Ronald Jones II and Justin Davis running the football. So there are some components there. I think Clay Helton takes the approach of not letting them take shots early, get some simple passes. Most importantly, run the football. That's going to be the key for USC. Settle Max Brown into the game by running the football. You look at Alabama, Robinson. There's no more Jaron Reed. There's no more DJ Petway. There's no more Darren Lake. There's no more Reggie Ragland. And these were all premier run-stopping defenders. You look at what made Alabama so special last year, Mark, is that it was 16 to 17 guys on a defense that you could rotate. There was no drop-off. If a 1 had to come off, a 2 would come in, boom, same production. A 2 would come out, a 3 would come in, boom, same production. And Alabama's got the pass rushers in Jonathan Allen, Deshaun Hand, Tim Williams, Ryan Anderson, Rashaan Evans, but does it have the premier run stoppers? That's going to be the question, and I think that's what Clay Helton is going to target. Can we run the football and create some type of positive yardage, getting Max Brown into 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2, these manageable situations where he can have a shot at really throwing the football.
And Alabama's going to see 3 running backs out of USC, so they're going to stay fresh. The kid to look out for, if you haven't seen him play, I'm not talking to you, Stephen, because you watch everybody play, but is Ronald Jones, who's an exciting back, was a freshman last year that just almost finished with 1,000 yards, and he's one of the more dynamic backs that I've seen in recent years, who didn't carry the ball a ton last year. He wasn't the main guy, but look to him for the big plays out of USC's ground game, and he's going to be the big challenge. So I don't know if you've come out with your predictions. So if you haven't yet, Stephen, you got to let us know when it's going to be ready. But if you have, we would love to hear it.
I got 30-10, and that 30, it's not going to come on solely offense. I think Bama gets a special team score in there or 2, a defensive score in there or 2, because of the fact that this is a young, aside from Cam Robinson, arguably the 3rd oldest on this offensive line, coming behind Alphonse Shank Taylor, who's a senior, who will more than likely not play the first game of the season at right guard. Then there's Bradley Bozeman, who's a redshirt junior, and then the true junior, Cameron Robinson. So Alabama's going to have some kinks in the game that they're going to have to iron out, especially with that quarterback to center exchange. But if they can get that worked out, and in the second half, they do what Lane Kiffin's done the past 2 years, which is flex muscle, move the football, score points, eat clock, and get out of there with a win. But I got 30-10 in favor of Alabama, but that 30, not all coming from offense.
Ooh, that defense is laying down a serious statement game in game 1.
Mark, it's going to have to be, because I go back to you got new center, new quarterback, and new running back. Jake Coker and Derrick Henry are gone.
No. I'm talking about you guys shutting down USC to 10 points.
And that's going to be an interesting challenge because I go back to just like defensive backfield. Alabama's defensive backfield, you got to try to reroute Juju Smith. You got to try to reroute Stephen Mitchell Jr. You got to try to reroute the load of other players on that team and also the backs that can catch this ball out of the backfield and make tremendous plays. That's why I go back to it's going to be the trench war, Mark. Whoever wins the battle up front between offensive and defensive lines is going to win this football game. This is the old who can impose the will type of a ball game.
All right, so it's Bama, the defending national champion, 14-1 last year, taking on USC. Forget the record at 8-6 last year, an extremely talented team, but a thin team and unproven in key spots, including at quarterback with Max Brown and Stephen M. Smith. 30-10, Tide wins it in impressive fashion. Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama also catches show Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 Central Time. It's on Tide 102.9, the way it is. Stephen, we appreciate the time, man.